Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today we're going to talk about the YouTube Adpocalypse. And originally I wasn't going to talk about this because I feel like I kind of bring up my work on YouTube quite a lot. And I talk about some of the hurdles on YouTube quite a lot. And, you know, I don't want to get in a state of burnout where I'm always talking about like, this is what's wrong with YouTube. But somebody asked me recently, we were doing our Patreon game night thing. And one of the guys that was in there, he does his own video series, and I don't know how many views he got total on his channel. It was like, I don't know, 20,000 views or something like that. And he was like, hey Greg, like, do you know, is there something that causes videos to earn less money? Because I noticed this month, like, we released some content, and I did a lot of swearing, and I heard that YouTube is all upset because of, you know, content. You know, whether or not content is age appropriate. So he's like, do they have like a system that detects every time I swear? And because I only earn like $10 for like 20,000 views. And that's actually, no, that's not the case. If you guys haven't been following the news, YouTube is currently in what they're calling an adpocalypse, which is to say that essentially what I think happened was a lot of YouTube advertisers realized that their ads had very little value or very little worth to them, and they kind of pulled out from the platform. This is the conclusion that I come to at the end of this, but today we're going to talk about how exactly we got to this point. We're going to start way back when YouTube first started doing its monetization thing and they were letting people monetize. They were very selective about who they let in. You had to apply, then you had to be reviewed, and back in those days, if you got accepted in, that meant that you could still occasionally contact the person. And of course they had a lot of wonky automated systems, but I remember I actually got into their system just before they switched over to everyone can monetize. And back then, there was already some signs of strain, because what was happening was that those few people who were allowed to monetize, what they would do is they would go to companies, and they would pay them to bot click their videos, and that way every time a bot clicked one of their ads, they would get a little bit of extra revenue. And so you have like thousands of bots doing this, and it adds up to, you know, like several hundred some odd more dollars. Like, it was worth doing. So people were doing it, and the trouble with bots was that as they clicked videos, like, advertisers knew that they were getting clicked by bots because they were seeing thousands of views that would go to their website and then just immediately close it down and not look at anything. And I've done advertising with AdSense actually on our YouTube videos, and I see that all the time. I can't remember what we estimated, but like, if we just went by numbers of people who actually watched more than a quarter of a split second of a video, like, you can be killed in an RTS faster than or slower, this is getting a little wonky if you play a lot of, it takes like a quarter of a second to get shot to death in an RTS game, and these bots were like looking at our videos for less time than that. They were clicking on the videos, and you were seeing like 90% of the views were bots. Like, this is how bad of a problem it is, or just people who are clicking on the ads and then not even looking at the content. So advertisers were starting to pay less and less for this, and YouTube had this brilliant idea. What if they open up the floodgates and allow everybody to start monetizing at the current rates, and then they'll be running tons of ads, all at the rate that they're at, and this will make up for advertisers starting to pay less and less for ad clicks, because, you know, they don't want to be paying for bots, they want to pay for real eyes. So the vetting process was kind of dropped, and you know, when I say like, oh, there was a vetting process, the fact that I got in my opinion, is probably a fairly good indicator that the vetting process wasn't really all that robust. It wasn't that exclusive. I think that mostly they just looked at like, do you have a certain number of views? Do you have a certain number of subscribers? Is there potential for growth? Okay, you're in. But there was still, like I said, there were few enough partners that back then, occasionally when stuff went wrong, I could badger a human being, and I'd be like, why is it asking me to prove my rights of ownership to like this vlog of me or whatever? And then they could be like, oh, all right, let me fix it. And a lot of times what was funny back then is the automated systems just baffled the humans, and I think that's why one of the reasons they did away with humans was because like, the automated system would be like, hey, like, you have to do what I say, and then you'd like contact a human and you'd be like, what does it want? And they'd be like, I don't know, and they would just like disable its you know, its lock on your channel. It was very frustrating the way that sort of system worked. It was just sort of like, why am I locked out of monetization? I don't know. Here you go. You're monetized. I've manually added it. But we had some kind of glitch with like Haunting Nightmare, for example, where I got one of those, and I was like, how come, like, why are we locked out? Like, do you feel like it's a parody? Do you feel like we don't have a grounds on that or whatever? And they were like, I don't know. Like, could you submit more information? I'd be like, what do you want? They're like, tell us how you made the video. And I was like, well, we drew it, and then we did this. And she was like, I mean, like, are there any other rights that you can give, or like I don't know, like any legal paperwork? Like, have you filed with the Copyright Office? Like, this was a different person. And so I was like, filed with the Copyright Office? No, like, I don't know. Like, look, like, we did make the video. It is our original video. It is a parody of My Little Pony. Like, are you concerned about, like, we're assuming it's a parody, and there was eventually, like, I was like, okay, fine. And then it monetized, and there was some issue where, like, it produced zero, it just didn't produce any money. And so I was like, hey, like, it's not running ads or producing any, like, income. And this went on for, like, longer than a month, like this back and forth. And finally they were just like, YouTube reserves the right to not cooperate and not monetize things, and we don't have any responsibilities to you whatsoever. So yes, when I talk about like this old system, it's not like I'm looking back and saying like, oh, they were better times, it was more efficient for everyone. I mean, like, it was full of problems, there was tons of issues. It wasn't necessarily better, but the ad rates were definitely higher. And in fact, back then, I was looking at it, between Pederup and I, there wasn't really enough money to like live off of. But I believe that in ad revenue, we were making like about $1,600 a month. That was at the peak of things. That was like right after we posted Bittersweet, I think, or maybe before. I can't recall. But yeah, it was looking like it was like, oh man, like if we start doing just a little bit better, like maybe the two of us could just live off of YouTube revenue. Like, we would just need to keep making content that gets popular like this, and we could keep going, and it looked feasible. But Rainbow Dash Presents takes a long time to make, and year after year we noticed that per click, ad revenue was continuing to drop. And we were seeing this same problem again, where it was just like there was tons of bots, and advertisers didn't want to sell ads to bots, and so they were paying less for ads. And then YouTube switched over to the Let's Play thing, or the thing that gave us like an explosion of Let's Plays, which kind of surprised everybody, and also brought us PewDiePie. PewDiePie rose to the top. It started looking for channels that were producing a lot of content that was very long, and also derivative. So like Let's Plays were ideal for this, because they were 15 minutes, I've talked about this before, they're 15 minutes long, 10 to 15 minutes, they were about someone else's intellectual property, and they came out like once a day. And what YouTube was doing is, again, for the same reason they opened the floodgates and stopped vetting channels to get monetized, they were trying to expand the number of ads that they could run. They were trying to make up for, in volume, what they were losing in quality. So as the value of ads was dropping, YouTube started trying to sell more ads, and so they started promoting and aiding channels that were releasing lots of content so that they could run more ads and just do more and more volume. And again, we continue to see the trend where now not only were we earning less per video, like ads didn't go up, like the worth of an ad did not increase for anybody. But what happened was that just channels that could produce a lot of content started getting promoted more. So, like Game Grumps or whatever, like Ego Raptor talked about, well, I had to just switch away from animation and start doing Game Grumps, because that was the only way to cooperate with what YouTube wanted. He had to release a lot of content, and he had to release it frequently, otherwise he wouldn't be promoted and he wouldn't earn any income. So suddenly, like 10,000 ads, or the amount of traffic that like Rainbow Dash Presents was getting, it just steadily dropped off. So it started off at this kind of like, oh, this looks kind of appealing, and maybe we could work with it. And it just steadily got lower and lower and lower until eventually we were like, well, there's no way we can actually make a living off of this. And it's headed in a downward trajectory, so there's no reason to believe that, making parodies of like My Little Pony fan fiction is going to be a successful business model. So, yes, it just kept going like this, and people kept going over to that low effort, high quantity video model to make things work. And it wasn't really until Patreon rolled around that we began to see people actually coming back and saying like, oh, okay, so now I can actually produce real content again with people's support. And then once again, support us on Patreon if you like our content. This is the only way that we actually survive. But anyway, though, Patreon made it possible through fan donations, consistent, reliable fan donations, to actually survive and make some kind of content that was maybe like higher effort and required something outside the YouTube system. Because YouTube's whole system has been focused on just producing volume, and that whole volume plan is really, it doesn't really present a whole lot of opportunities for good business models to people who are actually using the platform. Then things continue to get worse as YouTube realized that just expanding, like just promoting channels that are releasing a ton of content was not doing enough. Because the trouble is that you also want everyone to watch the whole content. Like you can't really just say like, okay, go to this person's channel. Like go watch Game Grumps, they release a lot of videos. And what used to happen, that's how it used to work, is they would say, go to Game Grumps. They produced lots of videos, and that was all YouTube cared about. Lots of videos, and they're all like 10 or 15 minutes. And Frederator was doing statistical analysis on this, and they were finding like there were these channels that were releasing there was one example that they gave, and they said that yeah, it was really one of the more damning reasons. Like this is one of the more damning anecdotal reasons why we gave up on animation on YouTube. But they were looking at this channel that had like these short like 2-minute videos or whatever. That was like, I can't remember what it was. It was something that they had to like work really hard on. And then they were releasing these like hour-long things that were generally unedited, and it was sort of like archival footage on like, how did we produce this content that we made? And so what they did is they told them to stop releasing the actual content, and then, or not on that channel. They said release the actual content on another channel, and then take these 70-minute videos and just start releasing these on this channel, and have that be the only thing you do on this channel. And they found that the channel that only ran the like unedited, like, you know, kind of like garbled footage, like these 70-minute videos of like, here's my process, that channel wound up making substantially more money and being substantially more successful than the channel with the finished product on it. Like, it's crazy. It's like, you know, like people didn't even get to see the finished product. Like more people were being directed to the work in progress, or how I made my work, than they were to the actual channel. And you see this now with like certain artists like Proco and like Keenan Lafferty, and like these guys are really useful if you want to learn how to draw. Like if you're an aspiring artist, I recommend you go check them out. Proco, that's P-R-O-K-O, Proco, Papa Red, I don't remember my call signs anymore. Papa, in case I mispronounce. And then Keenan Lafferty, and I can't remember how to spell it, but I think it's K-I-E-N-A-N, and then Lafferty, like laugh, but if you misspelled it, and Erdy, as in like Erdy. Anyway though, so these are both artists. Keenan Lafferty is probably a better example of this, who kind of have a whole channel dedicated to not producing art. Like they don't show you a final product of art necessarily. What they do is they show you the work process of how they got to their final product, and they say like, this is kind of how they do. It's educational and it's valuable. Like I'm not knocking this. This is actually, these are great things, and I watch their videos sometimes. But if they just showed you like you know, like if they were to just show you like, oh, here's the finished product or whatever, and they talked about that for a little bit, it was like a 30-second video, it'd be worthless. YouTube would never promote it. But that 15-20 minute you know, like tutorial of like, oh, here, watch me draw for a while, and here's what I'm doing, and here's what I did wrong, and here's what I think about this, and let me throw a few jokes in here, that gets promoted. And at least with that one, it's a little bit more understandable, because you know, a static image doesn't produce like a can we say, it's like it's not really all that worthy of video just to sit there by itself. But with animation, like the kind of stuff that we did, I talked to like TROY and Pymations and a couple of other people who just like did animations and creative stuff, Viva, and we were finding that YouTube live streams were producing more ad revenue than the actual videos themselves. Like if you spent a week showing everyone your process on how you made an animation, you pulled in more ad revenue than if you were just releasing the animations by themselves. And yeah, this had become the system, as YouTube was all about, again, volume. But then what they were doing is they weren't just trying to promote volume, because like your channel would have, like for example, Game Grumps might be doing Sonic 06, which everybody really liked. But then they move on to like Solitaire. And Solitaire is not a big ticket item, like not, you know, people aren't naturally looking up Solitaire. So what would happen is, it used to be that YouTube would have you watch like, oh, so you're finished with Sonic 06, why don't you check out something else that they made, like for example their Solitaire videos. And they would direct a bunch of people to go look at the Game Grumps Solitaire videos, and this kept up their viewership. It made it to where virtually anything they tried, there was a good chance that YouTube would try to direct them along and keep them on that channel, because the channel itself was exhibiting behaviors that YouTube wanted to promote. But the problem was that there wasn't what you call a high click-through rate for that kind of thing. So when they would show up and they'd say, hey, do you want to like go look at the solitaire video? Solitaire would naturally not be as popular, and there would be fewer people organically finding it. So, there would be people who would see that ad and they wouldn't click it. And so YouTube now has started to look at, they want to have you watch as many videos as possible. They want you binge watching nonstop. They're trying to saturate with as many ads as possible. So instead of directing you to the next Game Grumps video, they say, oh, you like Sonic 06, let me find another channel that produces a lot of content all the time, very repetitive, that also did Sonic 06. And you can binge watch another Let's Play of Sonic 06. And then once you're done with that, they find another channel. And so there's not really any, they don't promote any sort of like brand loyalty. They're not really trying to help anyone build a business model or build a brand or become anything recognizable. They're just shifting people around and just putting them wherever their videos are. Like, where is the next long video about Sonic 06? Go to that channel. And this is another thing that's we get to kind of where we are now, where because there's no loyalty, and if a channel doesn't brand effectively when it's doing its videos, like YouTube will just shuffle everyone around. And you may not even know, like you just come to some random video and you don't know like who they are. Like they're not really like a person anymore. And I was starting to see this not long ago when somebody I knew reposted like they reposted a video, and I was like, oh, that was so-and-so did that video. And they this was a person who didn't do any branding on their videos. So they just did this content, and then it was like you didn't know who did it. So it was just being passed all around Twitter and Tumblr and everything, and nobody knew who did this video. Like nobody was aware. They were just like, "Oh, really?" I think like even like TROI, I talked to him. He did the big Rick and Morty thing, and a lot of people have probably seen that. But I'm not sure how many people are actually aware that was like TROI, the guy who did the Twilight Licious animations and things like that. And part of that is because when they get into like what they do, like TROI does like very, very realistic, or when I say realistic, I mean he follows the show styles very well. So he doesn't really have, when you watch his content, he's not really like his own style. He's not like, oh, that's recognizably TROI. It's more like, oh, that's recognizably like it looks exactly like Rick and Morty. So people pass this stuff around Tumblr, and I don't know if they necessarily even realize who's making the content. They just see it, and to them it's Rick and Morty. It's the Rick and Morty brand. This is what they think in their heads when they see it. So again, like YouTube is doing this, where it's just shifting people around, and it's just like if you have the auto load next video thing on, then it'll just take you over to like this thing, and it's like, oh, it's a Rick and Morty animation, and then you have no idea who made it, and then it just shuffles you off to some other channel. So it's just bouncing you from channel to channel to channel, and you don't really know who's doing any of the content or what any of it is, and there's a few brands on there, but a lot of people just don't, they don't get into the branding, or they don't do this, they don't like build up an identity. And the way that YouTube works is they don't really try to help you build an identity. They don't really try to help you get out there or really support that sort of thing. So this is at odds with advertising because advertisers, like really what you want, the impression that you want them to be giving is, this content is brought to you by or supported by or made possible by Bored Trucks, whatever, Super Soda, like generic brand, generic brand supports independent creators, so-and-so, so this and that. But the YouTube environment really doesn't foster that mentality. Everybody, when they see ads on YouTube, they don't think of them as like, Greg is supported by Bored Trucks. Like, nobody thinks that. Like, when they see a Bored Truck ad, they don't think that Bored Trucks is actively trying to keep me alive. They don't think that Bored Trucks cares about me. Bored Trucks probably doesn't even know who I am. Like, if you asked them, they're like, yeah, how do you feel about, like, Greg's work on YouTube? Like, the Bored Trucks marketing director would just be like, who? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So there's not really that sense of, like, they don't even really go in for, like, we are supporting creativity on the internet, because Bored Trucks doesn't know who they're advertising with. And this is the big stink that they're talking about is right now, what they've done, and the reason why we're in the adpocalypse is finally we get to the present. A bunch of advertisers have completely pulled out of YouTube because some people finally got up there, like there were a couple of government organizations who got up there and they said, look, recurringly, we're finding ourselves advertising and giving money to and supporting ISIS. Like, there are videos made by ISIS posted to YouTube, and then they monetize those videos, and then our ads run on their videos. And we can't, like, we have no control over that. Like, we just show up. So even if we were like, oh, we're supporting independent creativity on YouTube, and they were trying to create that sort of more personal feeling that made people feel like, oh, Bored Trucks is a great brand, they're supporting independent artists, that doesn't work. Because Bored Trucks can't say, oh, we're supporting independent artists, and then they go to a video of someone having their head chopped off in the desert. Like, it's not a good system. It doesn't work. It's not ever going to work. And so as YouTube gets bigger and they force more volume, they reduce the amount of like actual talent and work that goes into videos and just try and get more and more stuff out there. And then they start shuffling from channel to channel to channel. Advertisers have no idea where they are. They don't know what they're advertising on. They don't know what the quality of the videos are, but odds are, because of the way that YouTube has organized its system to just crap out as much volume as possible, they can pretty much guess that most of their ads are going to very low quality videos, or videos that, you know, are very easy to regurgitate and can be made like once a day. So it's not really a good system for them that they're finding, because like tons of the ad clicks are just bots, and the people who are watching the videos don't assume that Bored Trucks knows who they're advertising with. They know that Bored Trucks doesn't care about the YouTuber in question. Bored Trucks doesn't even know they're advertising with the YouTuber in question. And one thing that was weird is, for a while we started to see YouTubers who were reaching out and trying to advertise more independently. Like, they were saying, like, look at all this viewership I have. Like, and you see this with, like, for example, JonTron was doing like Normal Boots and whatever. He recently got in that big political controversy where you know, he lost a bunch of advertisers, but he's a good example. Like, there's like Normal Boots and a couple of other advertisers that were reaching out on YouTube. But as more and more people started to do that, and you started to see more mainstream things, I'm not even clear right now what the exact rule on this is, but YouTube stepped in and they said, stop. Like, don't do this. Like, you can't take sponsors and advertisers, because then we don't get a cut, because you negotiated it by yourself instead of using AdWords, which we own. Like, you can't just advertise for people or with people unless our input is here, not using, like, we'll delete you from our platform. You have to do it. And it spooked a lot of people, and a lot of people then moved away from independently seeking advertisers. So it got to be weird, because YouTube wants to gatekeep. They want it to where advertisers have to come to them to advertise. And they don't really do a very good job of finding people who are legitimately good to advertise with for their advertisers. So it's bizarre. The whole thing is kind of very Google friendly. It's all kind of built around producing money for YouTube and for Google, for Alphabet, you know, is the name of their company now. Like, the whole system is kind of geared around producing money for Alphabet. And it's not really a good environment for YouTube users, for content creators, and it's not a good environment for advertisers either. And everybody kind of knows this, and this whole Adpocalypse thing has been coming for a long time. So anyway, so the Adpocalypse is just like, once we had a couple of these government advertisers pull out, and they said explicitly, because, well, you know, we don't really care about all the other places we're showing up, and we're advertising for ISIS, other advertisers have kind of come forward and admit the same thing, is they're saying, like, well, yeah, most of our ads on YouTube are virtually worthless, and some of them are actually harmful. Because the other thing that you find occurs when you encourage, like, really high volume about derivative crap is that you're getting a lot of demagoguery, like more and more videos where people just get up there and they say something offensive, like politically, and then they get a lot of attention and views, and people spread it around, and they say, oh, look at this asshole, and that's popular. But a lot of that is hate speech, and it comes from all different sides of the aisle. You get like anti this demographic, anti that demographic, but it's all just anti. And then you were also getting people like Leafy, who were in a similar way, but in a more social way. They just kind of, like, you know, trawled around the internet looking for people that they could victimize, and then just beating on them, you know, sending their fans to go make their lives worse. Like, just awful people, Leafy. And people like him. Like, it wasn't just Leafy, but there were people like him that were starting to just rise up and become, like, one of the most profitable ways to get big on YouTube. Because beating on people like that, I mean, you would do this to someone with like a modest fan base, and you would just show up and you'd be like, hey, you know, dickhead, and you'd like kick him around in front of all of his fans, and it would draw a whole bunch of attention. And so some of their fans would show up, and they would just, like, people would talk about it, and they would be like, oh, this Leafy guy, what a dick. And so it was just getting to be to where like being awful was a great way to get big on YouTube. So yes, this is just a natural consequence of promoting like high volumes of garbage just to run as many ads as you can, is that inevitably YouTube was going to find itself completely saturated with just poisonous garbage. And so yeah, advertisers have pulled out. They don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. And the trouble is, as what always happens whenever you're looking at YouTube, the people who are actually making real content are the ones who wind up getting just very badly hurt by this whole system. Because as it was, they were already struggling and already trying to do a lot of weird and non-conventional things to make money and to get by on YouTube. And then when it comes along and it says like, well, even if you were scraping before, like you were scraping before, but now you're just gonna die. It just hit them like way harder. So like I say, I know I talk to like TROI sometimes and like Pymations and stuff like that. And those guys recently released some Patreon videos, and they're trying to get support for their content. And it's a little bit awkward for them because they're talking about it and they're just like, yeah, like man, we're not getting really a whole lot of bites. For the size of the viewership, they're like, yeah, there's really not a whole lot of takers on the Patreon thing. And he was saying like I wasn't really surprised by it. I mean, like, I had my hopes up, but I kind of knew that, like, people see the millions and millions of views, and they don't feel like I need the support. But a lot of people, I think, are not aware right now of just how catastrophically the bottom has dropped out on ads. For context, like, I talked before about, like, way back when we were at the peak of Rainbow Dash Presents, we were making about $1,600 a month on that. I was splitting it with PetterUp. But yeah, like after everything was done, and at the end of the month, we were making $1,600, and that was the very peak. Currently, this month, I have about like 300,000 views on the main channel. I expect to earn about like $200. That's where we're at. That's how much ads have fallen on YouTube. That is the state that TROI and Pymations and probably a lot of YouTubers are at right now, where they're kind of looking at like just this huge, catastrophic, like record-breaking fall off in income. And they don't know what to do, because previously they may have been getting by, or they probably, like, most people on YouTube aren't making like, you know, six figures. They can't like retire necessarily young. But as soon as you get this huge drop where you go from like 1,600 to 200, like, of course, this is also we have lower, like, we used to get like close to 1 million views back at the peak of Rainbow Dash Presents. They've quit advertising Rainbow Dash Presents in general, the algorithm has. But, you know, we've gone from like 1 million to 300,000, but still, that's $1,600 to $200. Like, it's a pretty heavy hit. And before that, I mean, like, before the Adpocalypse, we were doing like better than that. At least, like, I would say $600 a month. I don't know. It wasn't as bad as it is. So yeah, so those guys who are kind of out there right now making a lot of Patreon videos and saying like, please support me, they're not just being greedy. This Adpocalypse thing has really probably just cut their dicks off. Like, it's cut their balls off. They're just suddenly like looking at it and they're like, well, I'm gonna starve if this keeps up. And there's nothing that they can do about it. So this brings us back to the whole thing where they're doing now, YouTube is doing this like, oh, are you advertiser friendly? And it's not really addressing the core problem, I think, that advertisers really have with the YouTube platform. But now what they're doing is they're having a bot go around, and if it finds that your content is not advertiser friendly, then it flags it and it demonetizes it. And I've had a couple of my videos get demonetized as a result of this. One of them was I talked about working at the pharmacy, and because I mentioned drugs in that, even though it was in the context of a legal sort of thing, YouTube came along and they demonetized me because they were saying like, we found this not advertiser friendly content, and I had to submit for review. And they reinstated the monetization after I submitted for review, but it was just weird because it was kind of like, you know, clearly this is just a program thing, and it's not like that smart of a program. I mean, they say it's going to learn, because that's what Alphabet's all about, is adaptive learning programs. But currently it's pretty stupid, and currently it's just attacking anything that it thinks like even might be remotely inappropriate. So some channels have just been completely annihilated if they were doing bizarre content. And some of them, when they submit for review, you know, like if there's like blood or like anything in there that like maybe the reviewer just can't agree with, then they're gonna be stuck as like adults only or whatever, not able to monetize. And what's really weird about it, and what's really frustrating, is that YouTube didn't send me any notifications that I had been demonetized. I discovered this after my MCN dropped me, and I had to go back and manually, by hand, remonetize every single video on my channel. That was a pain. And anyway, though, like I was just going through, and I just found like a bunch of videos that had been demonetized, and they were like just weird. Like some of them I could make sense of, and then others of them I had no idea. Like why did you demonetize this? This doesn't make any sense. I saw some news articles about like some Ford truck, or I don't know if it was like Ford, but it was a couple of like car dealerships that had their channels like terminated for not being advertiser friendly. They were accused of deceptive marketing practices, which the car dealers hotly contested. They strongly disagreed with this opinion. Like they were car dealers. Like come on, like just you can't just take down my channel for being a car dealer. So yes, the YouTube Adpocalypse. I think a lot of people, the trouble is, like, for me, I'm not too worried about it because I had already gotten comfortable with the idea that I was never going to be able to rely on YouTube. Like I say, we appreciate the support on Patreon, and it's what allows us to keep going. But we transitioned over to Patreon, pretty much as soon as it became a thing. And I've been, posting on Newgrounds now and Facebook and VidMe. I've been trying to look at the next alternative, whatever's going to come after YouTube, whatever's going to get us attention aside from YouTube. And it's refreshing in a way because, like I say, YouTube has, for several years now, always made me feel like our content really didn't have much promise or potential because we'd post it, and like every single thing that we posted, it felt like it was always getting less and less viewership. But posting on like Facebook and seeing things getting organically shared by people because they really do enjoy it, or seeing like, lots of positive comments on Newgrounds, oh, this gets 4 stars, whatever, and that'll be just on like J cartoons. Not every J cartoon gets like 4 stars, but we're seeing people like, giving a fair appraisal to things, and then kind of getting shared and getting like maybe promoted on things you should kind of look at because they're sort of funny and cool, and like being on there on Newgrounds. Like it feels good and it feels promising because it makes me feel like the content should be doing, all right. Maybe not like the first thing that everyone wakes up and goes to look at, but definitely like it's fun and people are enjoying it, and we should keep doing it. So outside of YouTube, everything feels good. It doesn't feel like it's getting that the huge amount of viewership that we would need to like really survive. But it feels like there's potential and like there's promise, and if we keep going, then it's not like we can continue to improve and people find this entertaining. So yes, though, but with YouTube, I just don't know what's going to happen because a lot of analysts are kind of looking at this, and YouTube is doing this thing now where they're like taking down, they're removing monetization and taking down videos, that somewhat randomly. It's like not entirely random, but they're using a program to just attack videos, to demonstrate by attacking any kind of content that they feel like that they're trying, and this is actually how they handled the copyright situation too, was they just attacked, tons of videos indiscriminately and gave all the power over to copyright holders. And they said, there, you see, we don't have a copyright problem because we've allowed like large copyright holders to start pirating content and take money they don't own. And it took them years and years and years to establish an escrow system where they finally said like, oh, well, maybe we won't just pay the person who made the claim. Like, maybe we'll wait until the dispute is resolved before we start throwing money at someone. So it took them years to do that, but it used to be that they just gave all the power. Like, they were just like, oh yeah, like Viacom wants to pirate all this content, so we'll just let them do that. And because they're big and have lawyers, they won't sue us for copyright infringement, and the people they're pirating from don't have lawyers, and they won't sue anybody. So this is a perfect system, and it's just, like I say, it's kind of how YouTube goes. But I don't think that, like right now they're trying to fool intelligent thinking people, and the problem that advertisers have is not that they want to pirate people's content, or not that they want to swindle people, or not that they want to have this leverage. The problem they're having is that nobody is emotionally engaged with the millionth like Let's Play that comes out about Sonic 06 or whatever. There's like a billion interchangeable Let's Plays of Sonic 06. And maybe you might like the particular personality that's going on, but like advertisers don't know who they're advertising with. They can't say like, hey, we're keeping Jerry alive specifically. Shop at Walmart, we like Jerry. There's nothing like that going on for advertisers. And so their whole scheme, the only thing they're doing is they're just getting their brands out there And kind of a lot of the times they're getting their brands in the way of watching a video, which most people just find annoying. And again, they don't associate that with, all right, you know, Walmart is supporting Jerry, so therefore, all right, that's fine. They mostly just kind of see like Walmart has randomly shown up by some algorithmic, you know, decision like in front of Jerry. And I kind of wish this advertisement weren't here at all, you know, but there's no humanity here. There's nothing to be emotionally involved with. So that's not good for advertisers. They don't want to advertise in front of ISIS. They don't want to advertise in front of like demagoguery. They don't want to advertise in front of like online bullying. There's not really a whole lot on YouTube for advertisers based on the direction that YouTube has gone. And I think ironically, like I don't know how they're going to fix this or how they're going to reverse it, because Blip ran into a similar problem, like Blip TV, where they were trying to sell as many ads as possible and take on as many people as possible, and they found that the volume plan wasn't working. So instead then they tried to shrink and sell ads to say like, oh, we have like Ray William Johnson, and we have DBZ Abridged, you know, like we have a couple of things that are really big. We have Doug Walker, you know, like maybe you want to advertise with these really big recognizable names. And the trouble was, though, is that the advertisers weren't really taking. They didn't really want to put that much money, you know, towards Doug Walker or whatever when they had like when they could pay substantially less into AdSense and then just show up like thousands of other places. So it's kind of weird. It's like they don't want to pay a lot of money into being in front of someone who's got kind of an actual brand because they could pay less and be all over like YouTube. But at the same time, YouTube really doesn't provide much value for the little amount of money that they spend. So, all in all things considering, online advertising is, at least on video, a little bit weird and a really awkward place, and probably on a bit of a precipice, because YouTube has their current volume-only plan has collapsed. Like, there's no way that the channel, there's no way that YouTube can just be surviving on expanding the number of people they run ads with. They can't, like there are people who are quitting YouTube, like people are saying they're not having fun anymore, it's exhausting. They can't keep up with the demand. Like the idea that you would produce 3 videos a day is insane. Like it's so much work, and you know, you get millions and millions of views doing that maybe, but it's not like millions and millions of views worth of money. So it's not sustainable for the creators. Like they can't keep doing it, and so it's all kind of popping, it's all kind of collapsing, it's all kind of crumbling. And we're looking now at the adpocalypse, where everyone is suddenly earning next to nothing, and YouTube is going to have to make some real changes, and those real changes can't just be attacking YouTubers. Like, they have to probably start thinking about what kind of content that they build the platform to support. And I don't know if they're going to realize that, like, PewDiePie maybe wasn't really that great. Like, I mean, you gotta look at PewDiePie, and when you talk about like brands, like you think about like PewDiePie is not really, he's not really a brand. Like, I mean, like he's definitely a big name, and like everybody kind of knows who he is, so maybe you could argue that he is a brand, but he's not like a production company. He's not like a guy, you don't go to him and say like, oh, like stunning special effects, PewDiePie. You don't say like stunning comedic routine. Like you don't think of PewDiePie as like this amazing writer, or even like really that good of a speaker, because he uses so many like smash cuts, or what are they called, like jump cuts. Like he just like he'll say things, and then he'll say something else stupid, and then they cut, and then he cuts and they cut, and he doesn't do like a like he doesn't have the ability to really just talk and hold an audience, or like he doesn't do things with other people where he's got this like report. He's not like a talk show thing. There's not like this natural, he doesn't have like any natural gifts. He doesn't have any like talents that you could really showcase. Like you say like the PewDiePie brand. Like what do we do? Like what is the PewDiePie brand? He's the guy who's big on YouTube. He's the biggest YouTuber. PewDiePie brand. The brand of being the biggest YouTuber. Like that's it. That's all he does. Like I think that YouTube probably should have been alarmed when their biggest channels were not brands and are not people that were really like actually talented, when their biggest YouTuber was someone who was doing something that everyone else could do. Like that's bad. Like that's I mean, like in a way, I mean, if you're silly, I guess you could look at that and you could say like, well, that's maybe pretty good, because like if YouTube just quits doing YouTube, we'll just replace him with another PewDiePie because there's a million PewDiePies. But at the same time, it's kind of like, if everyone can do PewDiePie, why does anyone really tune in to PewDiePie? Like, if he's totally interchangeable, then why is PewDiePie better than anyone else? And the answer is just because of the number of people that are watching him. You know, which YouTube could artificially create any PewDiePie. If they just diverted all their resources to promoting like a single channel, it doesn't matter how good or bad it would be. It would just be the single most viewed thing on YouTube. Like, everyone would go to see, like, if some 13-year-old was just making blogs about how much he hated his friends at school, and YouTube was just like, from now on, everyone gets notified every time this kid updates his personal blog. Like, that kid would become the next PewDiePie. Like, that would just happen. That's the power that YouTube has. But again, like, advertisers don't really, like, there's not really that much emotional investment in, like, you know, the PewDiePies and the kids and all this stuff. It's kind of more, people want to support things that feel like they deserve support, things that are like challenging and artistically bold and stuff like that. There are still exceptions. Like, I complain a lot about, like, this doesn't get supported this doesn't get supported very well. But one thing I'll point out, like, sometimes if somebody puts in a phenomenal amount of work and you just can't deny the skill behind it, that'll get big. If you guys haven't seen Double King, for example, by Felix Cosgrove, that is just amazing and super cool. Like, go check that out. Double King is, like, really weird. It's about a double king. I don't know, you should go check it out. But apparently what this guy did is he doesn't even have a script. He described his creative processes. He just, like, sits down and he just animated. And for 2 years, he makes this cartoon. And it's just wonderfully animated. Like, very skillful, very colorful, very interesting. The main character is cute, but horrible. Double King. Check it out if you haven't seen it. So sometimes people get big, you know, through sheer talent, but that requires, like, a lot of talent, a pretty astronomical amount of talent, because you've got to rise above everything that's kind of holding you back. And maybe in the future, maybe if we're very lucky, like, I don't know what YouTube is going to do, but as far as what creators are doing, because the ad revenue situation has completely dropped out, I don't think that any of us are going to be able to continue functioning by trying to work with YouTube. I don't, like, I've been watching a couple of animators, like, for example, Hot Diggity Demon. He's had some success by doing his brain dump thing. And brain dump is actually kind of, it's kind of likable. Like, I enjoy brain dump. And it feels like he's getting to sort of flex his creativity and also do things, but I noticed that brain dump is almost entirely about, you know, reviewing other people's intellectual property. And sometimes he'll do things that are not reviews, but he disguises them as reviews. He says, yeah, review of Star Wars, and then, like, you tune in, and it's not a review of Star Wars. He just said it was to get you to click on the video, which is kind of deceptive and probably upsets people who actually want to hear about, you know, Star Wars, your opinion of Star Wars. But it's how he's managed to continue to be an animator and still satisfy YouTube. And the thing is, though, is that I'm suspecting that with the Adpocalypse, probably even though he's playing their game, he was good, he played their game, he did exactly what they were supposed to do, he struck an interesting and valuable compromise, which we have discussed internally as, like, this is not really a bad idea. I suspect that due to ads falling out, he's probably now feeling the crunch, like a lot of other people are. And there's this big question of, like, well, he's now doing everything YouTube wants, but it's not going to work. So I'm curious to see whether or not creators are going to go back to just making things, like people with a lot of talent and skill sitting back and saying, like, all right, well, I'm going to go back to devoting 6 months to making, like, a real cartoon. And I'm going to hope that people come and they see this real cartoon that I made, this high-effort product, and that they want to support it on Patreon or buy merchandise or get behind the brand that I built. And that maybe people go back to their branding, because, you know, YouTube is just going to try to oversaturate them with garbage, but I don't know what's going to happen if they keep trying to go in the volume direction, because they're just going to continue to bury themselves alive in trash. And as we're finding, even people who produce the most amount of trash are not going to be able to make a lot of money in the future. Like I say, as advertisers are coming back, they're coming back with smaller amounts of cash, and they're paying less for ads, and it's likely to stay that way for the reasons. Like, it's not just about ISIS, it's just about the way that the platform works. So, Yes, interesting breaking point we're at right now with YouTube. Hard to say where we're gonna go, but you know, maybe we'll rise out of this like a phoenix from the ashes. It's gonna be bumpy. If you have favorite YouTubers, favorite people that you want to support, and they've been posting Patreon videos, they're not joking. Like, they really are in need of support. Go check them out. If you're thinking about supporting them, throw a little support their way. They're probably in a time of need. It's important to them at this moment. But if they get through it, if they get through this dicey time, then, you know, they'll probably be there for the next revival, wherever that is, hopefully coming along. Hopefully, you gotta just hold that hope for it. I mean, people enjoy this sort of content, so there's gonna be a market for it somewhere. You just have to move along and find it. Such is the unstable nature of media. But anyway, I suppose that'll be it for today, so thanks for joining me, everybody. I will catch you all next time.